All right, good morning, everybody. It is Jay again, and the heat is on here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are finally up over the 100 degree, 105, 110 degree mark, and people always worry about their plants during this time period, which I definitely understand. And you definitely want to irrigate your plants extra during the 3 months or 4 months of summer that are coming on to make sure that you maintain all your new growth. And you also have to remember that 50% of your fruit is going to be harvested and to be grown during the middle of the summer. So this is an argument I always get of, man, you just can't plant anything during the summer, anything during the heat. Once it's over 105 degrees, you pretty much should shut things down and not plant any more trees during the summer. But that is absolutely incorrect. And I'm going to be giving you a list of 10 plants here that you definitely want to plant during the summer and during the heat, which may sound counterintuitive, right? Because we want to plant a lot of our plants during the cooler seasons here, like in February, early spring, or in October, which would be fall. That's when a lot of people like to install their trees. And I get it, and it's because it's a lot cooler outside during those time periods, and you don't want to be out there taking care of those trees. Okay, so it's just easier to tell people not to plant during this time period. And I'm going to tell you some of the best trees that I have here on the property I have planted during the middle of the summer or during this heat and heat wave that we have. And really, you have to remember that any plant that's in a pot, sitting in a pot, is always going to do better in the ground no matter what time of the year. And it doesn't matter which day of the year, because you're keeping the root system cool, which is really the most important part of these plants, is keeping the base and the trunks on these trees nice and cool. And then you can allow the leaves and the branches to be out in the sunlight. Okay? But we do get a lot of growth over the summer on certain plants. So this is their time period. All right, so let's go over a few of these trees. All right, so let's start out here with number one. Let's just start with mangoes. So mangoes are going to fruit during the summer, and they're also going to grow, get a large flush of growth over the summer. And they also, like I said, that this is their fruiting time period. I mean, look at all the mangoes hanging off this tree. It is completely full. I'm hitting my head on them. Just absolutely full of mangoes. Okay, and also they're flushing all of their new growth during this time period. We're here in the middle of June, and you guys can see here that mangoes are putting on all their new growth. They are flushing out during this extremely hot time period, which you would think, you know, it's going to cook everything. But it is the time to plant mangoes. You can see the water's coming on them right now. Water's coming on, right? Got some nice bagged mangoes pretty much on every single tree that's here. And like I said, they've got all new flush. I'm not sure if you guys can see the mangoes along the back here in the full sun, but they're starting to put on all their new growth. So mangoes, even some of these seedlings, that I've got over here in the full sun, you can see that they are flushing as well. See if I can pull this down here for you. All new growth. Right? So they like the heat. They're actually activated during hot weather, and they're going to get the most growth during the hot weather as long as you've got the water coming to them too. So now you're more or less recreating a jungle, right? You've got that, it's like being at the equator. You've got this nice heat ripening up all your fruit, and as long as you keep the water to everything, then you're going to have all new growth and blooms and fruit on these tropical trees over the summer. Just nice big old leaves, right? Now, would I take and plant a very, very small mango in the full sun, like right out here? No, I wouldn't. And if I did, I would put a little bit of shade over it just to cool it for the first year, because it's going to get most of its root growth, like I said, during the summertime. So there's a lot going on underneath the ground, okay? You might want to shade a small baby mango, but the bigger ones are going to get their flush and their growth over this time period, okay? So I know it seems counterintuitive, but you're going to miss 4 months of growth and the most growth on a lot of these plants, because all these plants are going to be hot weather plants, and they don't grow till it gets hot. Heat starts coming on, certain plants start looking really good, while as other plants are going to start looking really bad. So what you wouldn't plant this time of the year would be things like figs. Figs, apples, peaches, pears, all those get planted in the spring and in the fall. But all these tropical trees or hot weather trees that I'm going to go over here, they don't want that. They want planted because they're only going to grow 4 months of the summer. Okay, so mango's number 1. Okay, number 2, while I'm back here, is Chiku sapote. So Chiku sapote, and man, they look really good this time of the year. Just full of leaves, full of new growth, absolutely full of flowers. Every single one of these branches has flowers on them, and they've also got some fruit on them from last season. See if I can find some of these here. Here we go. They kind of always have fruit on them. So they've got flowers, they've got small fruit, and they've got large fruit. And all these are going to ripen over the summer. You need the summer heat. So Chiku sapotes is one that you would plant over the summertime. Okay? Once again, would you put a really tiny one, you know, like a 3-gallon, would you put that out in the full sun? No, this is assuming that you've already got a little bit of shade and a little bit of cover, and that you're not putting all these, sacrificing all these trees to the full sun. Now, if you are going to put them in as a small size, all you need to do is shade them and water them this first year, and they will bite in their root system over the summer. Okay, so a lot of these root in over the summer. But yeah, the mangoes, even just out here, just in the full sun, all new growth, flushing all new growth. So mangoes and Chiku sapote is number 2, and Chiku sapote is actually one of the best flavored fruits out there because it tastes exactly like brown sugar. And you can see I've got a really big one back here. He's about, it's about 15 foot tall, and it is sticking up into the full sun. This pretty much has no more shade on it. And you can see that it's actually doing a lot better now. It is just charging, and it's almost hitting the power line there. You can see I've got a persimmon right to the side of it, and I've got a bunch of mangoes underneath it. And then the Chiku is growing up through there to get to the sunlight. So Chiku sapote is number 3, and we'll just pan over to number 4. Or I'm sorry, number 3. Number 3 is going to be Starfruit. So Starfruit, you can see I've got a very large tree back here. There's no way to shade this tree anymore. And it is actually putting on all new growth as well. It's got all new little growth tips up there. And this Starfruit is now becoming an actual shade tree. So he is shading some of the other plants and trees around them. But it's going to get a lot of growth over the summertime if you keep the water to these plants. Starfruit will grow multiple feet per year. All right, guys, so number 3 that you can get by with planting in the summer, as long as you've got a good spot for it or willing to shade it, because remember, they're going to get the most growth, is going to be Starfruit. Number 3. All right, let's attack number 4 here. So number 4 is going to be the mighty olive tree. And I actually planted this olive tree that I'm about to show you here in the middle of the summer, about 3 or 4 years ago, because believe me, I remember it. It was really, really hot out here in the front, and I basically could really get nothing to kind of grow in this spot. right here by the street. You've got the hot street and you've got the hot afternoon western sun. And you can see that this olive has taken this spot. It is roughly, I'm gonna say it's at least 15, if not a little bit taller, because the top of this gate here is 8 foot. So he's getting on up there to maybe the 15, 16 foot mark. And I barely even water this one. And it is absolutely full of fruit. Not sure if you guys can see these, but absolutely full of fruit. Just rocking it out here in the full sun. Let me come around. And you kind of see he goes on up, starting to close up this afternoon side for me, trying to close up this little walkway. So I'm probably going to actually take a rope and kind of pull him back over a little bit so he closes more of this gap, so that I've got some afternoon coverage here on the afternoon side, because this is the worst side. This is the western afternoon sun, is when all this stuff gets its light. So we've got a nice olive growing here, and like I said, you barely have to water them. They are evergreen. They look great all the time. And of course they're growing and fruiting as well. So this is one about the most bulletproof plant that we have here at the nursery. And if you kill one of these, it's time to stop gardening and it's time to find a different hobby, because these are bulletproof. Okay, so this is one you could definitely get by with planting in the summer. You're going to get a lot of his actual growth is going to come over this time period. You can see the younger ones here are actively growing. Okay, so olives, for sure, number 4, can be planted during the heat, should be planted during the heat. If you plant this stuff during the rest of the year, it's just gonna sit there. And in fact, as you water it and it's just sitting there, being a hot weather plant, you're gonna start to rot the roots out. And that's why a lot of things like bananas get rotted out, because they're not watered during the time period that they're the most active, which is over the summertime. When their roots are active and drinking, that's when you wanna plant these things, okay? And that's just the way it is. These type of trees, you can only plant, let's call it 4 or 5 months in the summer. I mean, you can plant them in the winter, but like I said, they're just gonna sit there. They're just really not gonna do much, because they're a hot weather plant. All right, guys, so number 4 is the mighty olive tree. Definitely put one of these where the worst part of your yard is and the least amount of water. Okay, so number 4 was olive. Number 5 is going to be also a larger shade tree, or fruiting or bean tree, whatever you want to call it. And that is going to be the carob tree, the mighty carob tree. This one's really not talked about a lot anymore. This is an older tree that was planted here in the valley. It's not planted so much anymore, but I don't know why not, because first of all, it's an enormous shade tree that you barely have to water, and all new growth on these as well. You can see that these really don't wake up till this time of the year when it gets nice and hot, and now you can flood these trees and they will grow many feet over the summer, and that's what you need. You need a lot of that summer growth. And one of the benefits of the carob is you've got the pods, which are an alternative to chocolate, and actually a healthier alternative to chocolate. I make a lot of things out of carobs. Let me show you the pods here. These are the carob pods, and they start out as green and then eventually they turn brown. And then you can grind these pods into what is basically chocolate, or an alternative to chocolate. I'm going to do a video just on this one tree alone, but we'll just kind of cover it in this section, because this is one of those hot weather trees that you can plant during the summer that's going to get nice and big and shade a large area of your yard. Not to mention, it's got the chocolate pods, let's call it, right? So number 5 is going to be the carob. This is one that you would plant during the hot weather. You can see a lot of his new growth out there on the tips. brand new growth, and so he's going to charge over the summer. So this is one that you would plant in the summer. Okay, number six. Number six is going to be curry leaf. And curry leaf is probably right on par there with olive trees as far as their strength in the full sun here in Arizona. They should be just a landscaping tree here, and I'm not sure why they're not used as that, because these things literally grow during, like a weed, during the heat. So you can see that they have all new growth on them, right? All new growth, just charging out here. And these basically get all the afternoon sun as well. And I've actually got a couple larger of these guys planted in the yard. And they're right out here in the full sun. And they love that extra heat. In fact, they are starting to grow over the metal wall that I installed. And they act as a buffer to the rest of the yard. I mean, look how beautiful these things look. Just out here and just in the full sun. Full afternoon sun. And they get nice and big. You can see the fence here. You can see that they are growing up over the metal fence into the street where it's nice and hot. And they are also protecting behind it. We've got some blood oranges here. And the base of this mulberry. This is a Shangri-La mulberry, which tend to get a little bit fried in the afternoon sun, right? Because they've got these giant leaves, gigantic green leaves that tend to burn a little bit in the afternoon sun, which is where I have this giant Shangri-La mulberry. And the curry is actually protecting the base of this tree in the afternoon. Just like this one over here is starting to shade and protect the blood orange and the ice cream bean that's right behind it. So curry leaf is definitely one you would plant during the summer, during the heat. And really you could plant these in the full sun, in the heat, and even being a small plant. I mean, these are pretty much bulletproof. Okay, they don't really produce a fruit per se. They produce these little berries. Okay, so they don't put a very big load on the tree, and that's why they do so good in the summer, because they don't have a big fruit on them, right? Like a big grapefruit or something that's slowing down the growth of the tree. It's just got these little berries. So these guys take the brunt of it in the afternoon, and they're starting to protect the yard that is behind it. Okay, and while we're up here, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the next one, which is going to be Barbados cherries, because Barbados cherries are the most bulletproof cherry bush or cherry type of plant that you're going to get. Okay, so these require full sun and they require the heat. Believe it or not, this is a cherry and they love the heat. So this one just got done fruiting. It's possible that it'll fruit again if I irrigate it well, but it's also growing completely over this metal fence. We've got the metal fence here, and you can see that this tree is growing up and over and starting to shade and cool even the other side of this metal wall. So they love the heat. You can see he's growing into 110, 120 degrees with this wall underneath him, which gets hot, like probably 160 degrees in the summer, and he's just absorbing all that extra heat. So I know it seems crazy, but there's actually some plants that like the heat, and you would plant them during this time period. Barbados cherry, I have these pretty much everywhere because they act as a nice filler bush. We're walking by another Chiku, which I did earlier on the list. Look how good these look. And all their new little fruits coming on. They just love the summer, love the heat. Let's get right back over here to this, another Barbados, because like I said, I've got them everywhere as a nice filler shrub. And you could even make a nice hedge out of these and completely block off the sun and protect your yard. If you want to wrap these kind of all the way around the yard, if you didn't have a fence, for instance, and you wanted some privacy, right, it would be these Barbados cherries. There's another one growing right behind it, way up here. And it is protecting this coconut cream mango that's underneath it, because it is a weeping type of mango, and it actually has new growth on it as well. So it's just getting a little bit of shade buffer from that Barbados cherry that is above it, right? Another starfruit out here, just full sun, just charging to the sky. Like, these are unbelievable plants that they can do this. Look at that new growth, brand new growth. Full sun, over 105, 110 degrees. They don't really care. In fact, most of your tropical type trees, like this Wampy here, are gonna look really great during the summer. And that's when they're actually gonna get most of their growth, believe it or not. You can see all this new growth. So man, when people tell you not to plant these things, you're missing out, and you're missing out on a lot of growth, because you're not only missing out on that little particular season, but you're never gonna get fruit like these Chikus if these things don't get installed. And I know it's hot outside, nobody wants to be out there, but the plants love it. The plants love heat and humidity, so they're the opposite of us. We don't like heat and humidity, right? We breathe oxygen, they breathe carbon dioxide. So just because you don't like something doesn't mean that the plants don't, or just because you don't want to get out there, you know, just tell people that I don't want to get out there and plant, instead of nothing can be planted during the heat in the summer, because actually a lot of things get planted during the heat in the summer. We've been doing this at least the last 15 years, and this is the time you plant certain trees, ice cream beans, because they've got that new growth on them. Okay, so next on the list is going to be Surinam cherries, to back up the Barbados cherries, because Surinam cherries are also a tropical cherry tree, and they are actually completely full of blooms right now. They've got little blooms, and they're gonna set cherries. They're very hard to see, but they're right there. Right there's the blooms. Very small flowers, you barely notice them. And then a week later, you're eating the cherry. And I'll tell you, this is probably my second favorite fruit on the planet, are these little Surinam cherries. And I especially like the black one. I like the red one as well, but I especially like the black one. The black one's gonna grow a little bit more like a little tree, right? So this is a black one here. And you see I've got him kind of staked up as a little single trunk tree. And then the red ones, the one right behind me here, the red ones are gonna grow a little bit more like a bush, a full bush. Now look at the new growth on them, right? Brand new growth over the summertime, all of them. And believe me, I've got probably more of these and mangoes planted than anything else. So I'm very familiar with their growth, and that they only grow a couple months. They only really grow 4 or 5 months during the summertime, and that's when you're gonna get the most explosive growth on these. Now, like I said, I've got them everywhere, and a lot of them are out here in the full sun or where it's getting the hottest part. So right next to this olive, we've got another Surinam, and you can see that he's actually a little bit in the shade, and he's growing out into the sunlight. So he's trying to reach more of that full sun, hot, nasty sun. So when you start observing certain plants like this, and you notice that they're getting a lot more growth during the summer time, then you know that that's really the time to get some of these in. Otherwise, you're going to miss that 4 months of explosive growth, right? I know it's hot. Jamun, they've just woke up, starting to put on their new leaves. So there's hot weather plants and there's cold weather plants, and you really need to be familiar with both. And if you're not, I understand, because a lot of the hot weather plants are going to be tropical trees, which most people aren't used to planting because they're not used to watering their yards. So a lot of this is just new to people. but I plant pretty much all summer, and it's pretty much all these tropicals that I'm telling you about. You just have to select certain trees and then select certain yards. You wouldn't go dumping everything out in the full sun as a little tiny baby. That's not what I'm suggesting at all whatsoever. You have to be smart about it if you're going to do it. But this is when we plant these. Guys, in fall we switch back over to the figs and the mulberries and the peaches and the figs and the pears. But this 4-month period is when we're doing these tropicals, because you get a lot of growth on things in the summer. Ficus, Indian laurel, right? They've just woke up. Now they're going to start to put on feet over the summer. Hot weather plants. Chiku right next to it. This is another one. I've got them everywhere as well. Hot weather plant. They need the hot weather, okay? Maybe not full sun, but hot weather, okay? Okay, so number 9. We're up to number 9. We're almost there, guys. Number 9 is going to be guava trees. So guava trees are going to get most of their growth over the summer months. These few months that we're heading into. I'm going to go back here and show you one in the ground, and then we'll look at some in pots that are fruiting as well. Okay, so same situation on these guys. These have just pretty much woken up as well. Here's the new leaves starting to form, and then we've got some fruit on them as well. So the fruit is going to slow the growth slightly because these guys fruit usually in June or July. So the fruit is going to slow them down just slightly, but he is full of fruit up here. And like I said, he's just woke up. So he's starting to put on all of his new leaves up here, and he will get several feet over the summer. In fact, this tree was huge. It filled this whole section, and we literally lopped it off, literally cut the tree off to let a little bit more light back in here to this fig right behind it, and the whole tree regrew back again in a year. So there's really no killing some of these things once they get established. Let's go back here and look at a couple in pots as well. And they should have fruit on them as well, because like I said, we are June heading into kind of July here, so that's their fruiting time period. Mangoes, all new growth. Mangoes, all new growth. This is when you're missing out on a couple feet of growth on these plants. Okay, guavas. Yep, looking really good out here. So they should, yep, here we go. Here's the brand new, they just woke up. So here's their new little growth starting. Got a little bee here as a friend. What's up, homie? All new growth, and a lot of this has fruit on it. So if we look at these, we can see that these are just full of Ruby Supreme guavas here, right? Every little branch on these guys is full. Guavas. Guavas. Full sun. Guavas, just full of fruit. Okay, so guavas, that is one that you're going to get the most growth, and really until this time period, they don't even really do much. They just they'll just wake up kind of this time period, maybe a little bit earlier on some varieties. But like I said, you're going to get the most growth over the summer on those. All right, guys, so let's get to the last one here. And this is one I don't actually have in the yard. I have a small one planted in the front that I just put in not too long ago. We'll go over here and look at this one in a pot, and that's going to be jujubes. So jujubes are sort of like olives, where if you kill that thing, it's probably time to stop gardening, okay? Because some of these are really tough, and they'll rebound on you even if they get severely damaged. So here's a jujube here, and you can see he barely has any leaves. He does have a few, but if we come around at these trees, we can see that they have just started their new growth as well. So if you look at the old leaf, which is usually pretty tagged, pretty ragged from last year, right? Right underneath that, where that leaf comes off again, is going to be all your new growth, okay? So jujubes, they just wake up during this time period. You can see every one of these has a new little branches. And now that these are awake, by the way, praying mantises love jujubes. There's their little egg sacs. In fact, yeah, they put them all over these trees. There's another one there. So they've just woken up, right? So this one will be planted soon. And I know it doesn't look like much, but it will be at the end of the summer once this gets planted and starts to fill in and form a canopy. Okay? So jujubes is number 10. So absolutely you can plant things in the middle of the summer, okay? Would you want to plant very small things in the full sun? No. You just shade them if you're going to plant them and give them good water, and you're going to have that massive amount of growth over the summer. And that's while other things are ripening. You know, got some nice Asian pears here. Well, normal pears as well. So these trees are just, and these fruit have to sit here until fall, right? So you have to not cook your pears over the summertime so that you're not eating cooked pears in the fall. You want these to be nice and juicy and soft and delicious, which they will be if just given the water. But you can also see that something like this peril, the leaves sort of shade and protect the fruit. I have to kind of pick branches up in order to find the fruit because they are underneath the leaves being shaded by the actual tree. All right, guys, I hope this helps some people. I know it won't help some, and I know some people are gonna just say that I'm crazy and none of this works, but you can see the kind of the proofs in the pudding, and we've been doing this for a very, very, very long time. Okay, so this stuff absolutely does work. And if you ever want a fruit like this, you got to get these trees in when you can get the most growth. These are fruit punch mangoes here. Oh, these are good. These are one of my favorites. And they're getting pretty big already too. So I know a lot of you want these type of fruit trees and fruits, but then you got people on the internet, of course, telling you that this can't be done, and it absolutely can be done, and this is actually the time when it is done. Right? All right, guys, that is it for today's video. That is 10 trees that you can plant during the summer heat. Look at that little mango. During the summer heat, and it's actually good for them. That's when they're gonna thrive and do good, okay? All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe. And probably the next videos here are going to be mangoes for sure. Dragon fruit's coming on. Yeah, so don't be a silly person, okay? This stuff can absolutely be planted during the heat, okay? Certain plants. You're not gonna plant everything, but there's certain, moringa, perfect example. I'm standing under one. Moringa get planted this month because these seed pods are gonna dry and they're gonna fall, and then those seeds, they don't remain fresh for very long. They're gonna need to germinate within a month or two down here below this tree. So this is exactly when you would plant one, because this is exactly when moringas are gonna self-seed and start their own moringa trees. You don't grow these during the winter. Everyone knows that. This is a hot weather plant. Moringas are a hot weather plant, as are all the other ones in that video. Now you can see he is full of pods, and as soon as these pods go away, he'll fill back in full of leaves. But this is kind of normal for moringa to just be full of pods right now, because they put all their energy into all these pods. Now when all these pods fall off, then he'll re-leaf again. He'll be full of leaves again here real soon, but they're going to be kind of sparse because they're putting their energy into the fruit. It's not that they're dying or drying out or don't like summer. Like, you're actually going to get the most growth during the summer. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you for watching.